This is a song I've received a lot of requests to do a lesson on, and it is of course Oh Well Part 2 by Peter Green and Fleetwood Mac. It showed up on this album, Then Play On, back in 1970, 69, when it was really finished. But we had a long time ago a lesson on Part 1. And that people have liked that one as well. But Part 2 is a completely different song, and I've sort of begged off doing a lesson on it for unknown reasons, but now it's over. And so a lesson on this is finally up at TotallyGuitars, and I'm going to show you a couple of the segments that go into it. I really break the song down into 3 different sections. First, it is Section A. Section B, which is not much of a guitar part. Guitarists kind of play some chords while some other instruments go over it, but in the lesson we talk about how to improvise over a little bit of a solo like that. And then Section C, which is the most distinctive one. And we go through that part very extensively. I'm going to show you the, I put together an improvised playthrough that I played at that is the beginning of the lesson that shows some of the things you can do with it. But the lesson covers pretty much more just what's in the song, but we do get to the cool runs. Anyway, all that is covered in the lesson, and here are a few little excerpts from some of the parts of the lesson, but if you'd like to see it, it's up at TotallyGuitars now. It's part of the Target program, where we have extensive lessons, 500 lessons or so on various songs and techniques. We also have a lot of lessons up, much less complicated ones than this. This is pretty detailed. And we have a lot of free lessons. They're also here at YouTube in our TG Free Lessons channel. But I want to share a little bit of this lesson with you, so here are bits and pieces of some of the segments to Oh Well Part 2. Well, we are going to take a look at a song I was pretty sure I was never going to do a lesson on, but things changed. It grabbed me, and I said, you know, I got to do it. There have been a few requests for this. This is part 2 of Oh Well. Now, part 1 went up in the early days of Target. That was, of course, this. Now this is, of course, Fleetwood Mac, more specifically Peter Green, the founder of Fleetwood Mac, and who only made 3 albums with them in the late 60s. There was Mr. Wonderful, and the other one was just called Fleetwood Mac, I believe. No. Yes, anyway. And then the third one was Then Play On, which came out with this very cool cover. Opens up into a bigger cover. And this had this great rockin' tune, Oh Well, on it, that faded out at about a little after 2 minutes into a very long instrumental. That was mostly classical guitar, but a lot of other stuff in there. There were flutes, cellos. And there really are just 3 parts to this, although the recording, the song was eventually issued as part 1 and part 2. And part 1 was the 2.5-minute blues jam, Can't Help About the Think of the Shape I'm In, etc., etc. And it ended with a do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do, and landed on this big E minor chord. And then went through this cool little instrumental part, with this part I would consider the intro. Then we get into the A section. 3 sections. I'm going to call them A, B, and C, except there's D too, and D is just A. It just happens again at the end. And the A section starts off with this. Does it again. Little 4-measure phrase. Now another 4-measure phrase heading to B minor. Back to E minor. Repeats that. And ends on A minor. And that's the end of 1A section. Now that happens 3 times before it gets into a B section. Very little guitar in this part. The guitar really just keeps up this rhythm. And the piano comes in with this nice little melody and some strings and some other stuff that happens in there. The B section, not too much going on. In the playthrough that I kind of just made up at the beginning of this lesson, I stretched that out and just kind of improvised a little bit. This lesson is not really going to go, I will talk about improvising, but I'm not going to go through what I played right there because I was just making it up. But then it gets into the kind of classical Spanish guitar solo. Beautiful little part in there. Now in the playthrough I just did a minute ago too, I extended that quite a bit. We're going to stick to just what Peter did on the recording. And then it comes back with the A section. So we're going to take a look at all those parts. Now the recording and the sheet music that I have, the tablature I put together, has some timings on it so you'll know where in the song of the almost 9-minute version of the song we're talking about. There's one really unusual thing in this, and that was they had about a minute's worth of the part 2 tacked onto the single of part 1. Up until, if you take a look at the music, there's the first page. Nope, not that one. Ah, the one that fell. If you take a look at the first page, down in the last line, there is a repeat sign. And that's pretty much where part 2's attachment to part 1 ended and faded out. Now when they put it together for the album and just stitched it together, they left that whole fade out. They didn't fade it out, but they stopped at that point and then started the whole thing over. So there's a really mysterious repeat that is totally unnecessary and actually detracts from the song right there in measure 25, 26, 27, 28. So the first 28 measures get repeated. So we will be talking about ignoring the first 28 measures in the recording we're really just going to talk about the three parts. Well, the intro, section A, section B, and section C, which we'll look at pretty extensively. It has a nice little run. Nice, pretty flashy little cadenza kind of thing that happens right there. Now, a cadenza is a lick that the musician is allowed to improvise that the composer didn't necessarily write. Just said, make up something flashy here and bring me home. So it's a great example of a little cadenza to Peter's solo here in the key of E minor. Anyway, that's what we're going to be doing here. We'll break the sections up into separate videos, and we'll have close-ups if necessary, kind of depending on what is going on. I'm still in the planning stages of this, talking my way through the lesson. Anyway, okay, without more rambling, let's talk a little bit about the left hand. That will be a good idea coming up.